Welcome to Wednesdays with Willa. I am your host, Willa White, and this is my weekly podcast show that airs on Wednesday mornings at 10 a.m. Eastern on my Facebook page, Willa White Medium. It's year 7 of Wednesdays with Willa podcast, so there are lots of great guests that I've had over the years, wonderful topics. I encourage you to look back at the archived videos of the show. You can find those on my Facebook page and also my YouTube channel. This goes out on the Lilydale Assembly Facebook page as well, so you can access it there. And for those of you who are interested in Lilydale and the summer season that's fast approaching for 2024, you can find more information about that on the lilydaleassembly.org website. You're going to want to make sure you get things booked in terms of lodging, mediums, all of the things and the workshops that are going on. And I want to make sure I let people know that I do have an upcoming class that you would be very interested in. It's connecting with your spiritual support team. And that's going to be happening on April 13th. You can find more information and register on my website, willawhite.com, as well as a Monday night development circle that the new series will be starting on April 15th. So lots of great things that are upcoming. And today I am so thrilled to welcome back onto my show, Joseph Shiel. Thanks for being on the show today, Joe.
Thank you very much, Will. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And Joe's great to have on the show. He's been here several times before. He's a medium and a spirit artist, and also the pastor of the Journey Within Church that is located in New Jersey. And he does a lot of fine work, and you probably recognize him from various documentaries that have been out there. I lose track of the names of them, so if you want to
That,
throw those out at people, you
well,
can.
it's my 3 minutes of fame on Netflix, I think is what it is. It's fine.
That one, that
Those are
one,
cool.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
Good.
they can find you can go back and watch the Netflix and enjoy Joe and his mediumship. And I encourage you to look back at the archive videos of when Joe's been on my show before, because we've covered a lot of great things. We've covered the etheric arts. We've he's demonstrated and shown us how he does his spirit art and gone into great detail about that, as well as mediumship and spiritualist principles, which was a really great show. And also I love the one drawing closer to spirit and how to do that. But today our great topic is conversational mediumship. And that is a particular kind of mediumship, where we're going to get into that topic today. So lot of great tips, I'm sure, that are going to be shared in the show.
Yeah.
So let's get into it, Joe.
Okay, sure. Um, well, we were talking about a topic and what would become, and one of the things that I love to teach and love to talk about is basically how I found myself doing mediumship over the years, and then say, what are we really doing? What is this so-called communication with the hereafter, and how are we really bringing forth evidence of continuity of life, that there's somebody actually there that can communicate and give us information that's going to be accurate and be meaningful to someone, to really kind of move them to come to believe or come to understand. I don't think as mediums we prove anything. I don't think that's really necessarily the aim, even. It's to provide our talents and allow our talents to be utilized by the spirit world in order to bring forth the evidence, and an overwhelming body of evidence that brings them to believe that they're actually there. So it's really an effort on our part sometimes to get out of the way, to kind of let them step in with us. But I also saw it as a friendship, and that I make friends on the other side. I've had people that I've read for, and I met somebody in spirit that became quite close over the years, and just, they would pop into other people's readings, and it's like, what are you doing here? It's like incredible. It's like meeting friends and hanging out, and you see them in the future as well. And, oh, how are you? And they might have information or help us, another spirit, kind of communicate with us. And what is communication? Well, communication is a lot of things. I always say, listen with everything you are, and at the last resort, hear words. So it's not always it's not always voice or a clear audience that brings us information. It's the rest of us. It's the entirety of our being, the entirety of our essence. It's not only just aura energies and things like that, but this energy formulates information that makes sense to us. And it may hit somebody in different ways. And I often tell my students that, when you're reading for somebody and somebody comes through, they may have had a totally different relationship with their daughter than they did with their son, or with with their husband than what the husband's family thought of him. They might have loved him, but the wife wasn't so fond of him by the time he went or something. So the dynamics of real life is always there and in our midst. And what we really need to pay attention to is, how is this coming to me? How is it affecting my being? Who am I meeting? I might meet somebody's husband who a lot of people don't like, but I get along with him just fine. I have this sense of who he is, and I know his faults and I know his things, but I'm able to handle it. I'm able to take it with a grain of salt or something. I'm not going to get upset or resentful or out of sorts. So life takes its tolls on all of us with mistakes that we might make, or with just our being and the way it rubs somebody else wrong. We could be the nicest person in the world and be light on earth, and be holier than now. But the fact of the matter is that may tick somebody else off completely, because they are not ready spiritually for that, or they haven't really worked through their spiritual maladies. And so they really are put aside by somebody of light because they're exposed for their darkness. They're exposed for where they are. And maybe it's too much of a challenge right now for them. So therefore, they're going to battle out at that. They're going to come at that with maybe aggression instead of being happy that they're meeting a nice person, you see? So all those things can happen. But I want to kind of boil it down to just what we really can look at as mediumship, as going into a reading and doing our proper thing, which is introducing ourselves and setting up and keeping control of the reading, but not staying in our basic humanness, if you will, but allowing our spirit, our highest self, to engage and to begin the conversation. And I always like to say, as above, so below. So if you can picture a diner with a booth, up above in the heavens here, maybe if you want to put a little cherub around there, go right ahead. But I'm not the big fan of that. I'm just saying, we meet somebody. Imagine meeting somebody new, or going on your first date or something like that, and you go to this restaurant and you're sitting across the table. How do you get to know each other? First off, you're kind of looking at each other and judging, they know how to dress themselves, it's like, wow, yeah, where do they come from, and kind of the economic, social standards, if you will. And we have our own prejudices and our own things. We have to come to know ourselves and know our own faults and shortcomings, and know what we're working on in our own life to become better, or to become more spiritual. We have to know what's challenging us sometimes when we meet new people, and we trying to be a better person. And we might meet them across that table, and what are we going to do? We're going to ask them questions, it's going to, or maybe we're going to talk all about ourselves. Well, isn't that something? The mediums that I find that talk all about themselves and how great they are, they're really not very good mediums, because they forgot to listen to the other side. They're too busy talking about how great they are, and not enough about, I'm here to serve. I'm here to be here for you, to be the intermediary, to be that message board for you to write upon, to be upon and hold. So if I meet somebody new, I want to say hello to them. I want to say, how are you? And I want to mean it. I want to mean, how are you? And then what I want to do next is shut up. you know, let them, listen to the answer. Let them come through. Let them say something. Let them move you in one way or another. And like I said, at last resort, use words. How does it feel to be uh, inter interwoven with this person across the table? How does it feel to blend with their energy and come to know what it's like to be in their life? I don't want to run down memory lane. A lot of mediums go down memory lane. I've done it myself. It's like it's evidence, of course. All right, remember the time in 1963 when we did that? Remember the time when that, and then something to do with January, and there's something to do with this, and it's like, oh, geez. And then now the poor client across, the poor recipient across the table, in real life, as the medium's given the reading, is sitting there going, oh, geez, 1963. I don't remember yesterday. It was whole lunch, and it's like, and now they're frustrated now, and we're like, why can't you remember that? I'm getting that. It's like, well, because I got a lot of other things in my memory banks, and now you're taking me down memory lane. That's all nice and good, but where are you getting that? And actually, people will be suspect that you're reading their minds. It's one of the reasons people are very nervous around mediums. They think they're all telepaths that are going to, read their minds and know the deepest, darkest, dirty secrets. That's that's not okay. That doesn't put anybody at ease. We have to remember that we serve the spirit world first, foremost and always. That's who we serve for the sake of the client, for the sake of the people out here in this real world, if you will. But in that world, that imaginary mind, if you will, that is the real world of life gone forward in a new life, we sit with the person in the new life. We sit with spirit and we say to spirit, who are you? What was life like for you? You know, when you get to the pearly gates and ask Peter, what's my score? How many points did I get? He's going to ask you, did you enjoy your life? What'd you do? Did you screw up? Did you spend 10 years in prison? Did you have a family? Did you stay things? Did you get clean off those drugs and alcohol? Did you have a hard time? What was your relationship like with your kids? Did you work all the time and you never got to know them? Or did you spend a lot of time with your daughter, but not, kind of was too hard on your son? What is going on with you? What are your regrets? And what do you feel you did well and left with the world to be a better place? And so questions like that in our heads immediately spawn, uh, a, I would say, an energy or a movement towards getting an answer. And that answer isn't going to come necessarily with a clear conversation or words across the table. They're going to come with a feeling and a notion of who am I? And now the blending begins, the blending of spirit and communicator, us, the medium, becomes very, very intimate, very intricate. And we know who they are now. Now it goes from clairsentience and clairaudience and clear to a clear knowing, a clear cognizance of I am this person. And I know what it's like to be him because I sat across the diner booth with him and I talked to him. And I asked him hard questions, and we were almost both in tears because it wasn't an easy life. He did some great things, had a great job. He was an engineer. He did all these other things. But then, his life went to hell when he started drinking or what, and we can talk about a lifetime of experience, not in very few minutes. We only have what for reading a half an hour, maybe an hour,
It's short
small
time
span
and
of
it goes like
time.
that. Yeah.
So are we going to go down a laundry list of life, or are we going to go down the essence of life? And conversational mediumship brings in the essence of life. We're having a conversation with a friend, someone we're trying to get to know. Maybe it's not somebody we would have hung out with or, necessarily gone out to breakfast with. But the fact of the matter is like we're trying to get to know them for the sake of the sitter, for the sake of the loved one still here that may be struggling with, they didn't hear the last thing they said, or they didn't know how their dad felt about them, or they didn't know how mom, why was mom always so mean to me, that type of thing.
Right.
And these are the questions we get often when we say, well, at the end, we'll give you a chance to ask some questions, and in our readings. And then at the end, they ask those kinds of questions, and then we're baffled because we went down memory lane, but we don't know anything about these people. You know, we've got details. Oh, great, fantastic. but we're not engaged with these people as living friends, life to life. There is no death. So if it's life to life and there is no death, why would we not want to earn a friend? Why would we not want to have a conversation about reality, about what really is going on? Who were you really? Never mind the fact that you went to Vegas in 29 or something, or whatever. Let's talk about what it was like to be a mom. How hard was it on you? Did you enjoy being a mother? Was it difficult? What did it interrupt in your life? What were the dreams, hopes, and aspirations of being a great movie star or something? And then all of a sudden you got pregnant, and you had to get used to it. You had to go through the depression. You had to go through all that. That's when we really know somebody. And now the people who we're sitting with, they have a paradigm or a way they viewed mom. I've done a lot of family readings, and it's always interesting when a whole family walks in and it's mom and like 4 or 5 kids, and they're all adults, that most of them are adult, older, and they're all sitting there. Well, guess who they're looking for? I mean, first by observation alone, dad isn't there, okay? And they're all there. So we know who we're looking for. We know the spirit that they're waiting for. I mean, let's try a little common sense. Never mind mediumship. Never mind even we're observing something, we're intuitively picking up on it. We're kind of like, duh, this is who we're looking for. So we begin to talk, but what we're really looking for is how does each individual in this family reading know the spirit? Because the older child, he's not the happiest camper in the world. Matter of fact, with Dad, him and Dad fought it out over and over again. Competition city, angry at each other all the time. Dad always was on him hard because Dad was being the true father in the first place, his first kid, I got to get this right type of thing. And so he made a lot of mistakes. And because of that, the guy sitting in our reading, who's getting the reading, the oldest boy, is looking like, I don't want to be here. What the hell am I doing here? I'm doing it for mom, but boy, I would rather, yeah, the whole 9 yards. And then we've got a couple of daughters, maybe, and maybe a younger boy, the youngest kid of all, and he's 10, 12 years younger than the older brother. Well, his paradigm, his perspective of dad is a whole lot different than his older brothers. Number one, he's the baby of the family. So he got lots of attention. Number two, by then, Dad smoothed over. Dad kind of like, oh, enough, calm down. By then, Dad may have corrected some of the flaws and failures of his early fathering. So we've got a whole different way of looking at it. I can say this man's the nicest guy going to the family, and I'm going to have 3 or 4 people agreeing with me. And I'm going to have 1 or 2 that say, he was a jerk. You
It
see?
depends on
So,
where you're sitting on
yeah,
the bus
exactly.
and your
So,
viewpoint. Yeah.
so when you have conversational mediumship, you get to see the stories of life
Mhm.
and how people relate and how people come together. And you get the conversation just like if you were sitting with a friend at a diner talking to each other, how's so and so, how's your daughter doing, how's your son doing, and it's like you get their perspective of what they think they're doing. Well, my daughter's not talking to me right now, she's in college, she thinks she's all that, and we've gone through our things over the years, but oh my God, and this is the story we're getting the dynamics. That doesn't mean that love isn't present. It means that now we're getting the real struggles and challenges of life to life. Now, why is that spirit here? Now we get a sense of why they came. What's the total effort of coming through, finding a medium they can work with, and coming into the working with all that energy to make themselves known to us, and picking a medium possibly from their side. It's not like us chasing them around. They kind of find us. Okay, so
True.
if they find me or Willa, well, we're 2 different people. We're both nice people, but we have 2 different perspectives. Willa's a mom. She's got lots of work, lots of friends, lots of things that she does for the community and radio show and all the rest of it. And her efforts are very important to people. And someone on the other side might see that as I feel safe with Willa. I don't know about that bald-headed guy. I don't know if I can trust him, but I can trust Willa, so they come to Willa. Why? Because they feel like she can tell the story the best. So that's why I say with mediums, one of the biggest things to do with conversational mediumship is stop the competition. It's not about who's the best medium. It's who's the right medium for this particular situation. So you got to stop comparing yourselves to other people and start challenging yourself. If you want to be in competition, be in competition with how good are you doing? How much do you know your craft? How much do you know your talents? How much do you know yourself? Because if you know yourself, then you'll know who you're not. But if you don't know yourself, then you're going to be all over the map and you're going to struggle and you're going to get maybe angry, maybe even jealous of others. And before you know it, you've knocked out any kind of energy of being able to make clear connections. So we want to be on the top of our game. We want to be on the top of who we are. We want to be of soul, of spirit, and of the energy of love, because that's if there was a train from heaven to here, it's love.
Yeah.
And it's love train, as they used to say. What was that show? I don't know, that love train. Soul
The
train.
song, the
Soul
song
train.
is going through my head right now.
Right. Soul train. Yeah, I used to watch that as a kid. But anyway, that that's what I'm talking about. It's the conversation is a two-way street.
Yes.
It's not just I'm going to say what I want to say, or it's not just going to be, oh, he says this and he says this and he says this and he says this. No, I tell my clients, I asked them this and this is what he's giving back to me. I wanted to know what his relationship was with you and how
Yes.
how dynamic was. And you had a little bit of difficulty in life, but you really worked it all out by the time you were, by the time you had your own kids. You would understand that, wouldn't you? Yes, I do.
Right.
Now
It's
we
not a
know, now we
lecture,
know
it's
we have the right person.
conversation.
We just don't have a man with a hat, I love that when people say, I have a man here and that really narrows it down. There's only 8 billion people in the world, so we're down to about 4 billion, you know. Um, but where are we going with it? Who is this person that makes a decision to come into this conversation? And it becomes a three-way conversation. Okay, it becomes a circle of energy, a circle of love. We are the communicators, so we're that voice box in the middle. We're the ones that kind of process or allow ourselves to be used as the instrument of peace for those people that are sitting, waiting to hear from loved ones because of the tragedies of the end, because of the long sickness or the quick car accident or whatever it might have been. We understand maybe the details of that accident. We might even understand the hospital room and all the equipment and the pains and aggravation of being sick towards the end. And those are all important information. But do I really, when I bring spirit to somebody, do I really want to bring all that end time horror back up in their lives? Or do I want to leave that to just a quick mention and get into who they really were and what was this relationship in life?
Right.
Okay. And when I start to do that, then I know that I've got something really meaningful. And I'm blessed as a medium, I'm blessed to be in the midst of it. Picture yourself again going to the diner and you're sitting next to one person, the spirit possibly, and the other person's on the other side of the booth. Now you watch them have their conversation back and forth and you listen in. You're listening to their conversation. Remember that time? Remember when we did this? Remember, but you made me so upset that time. I was so ticked off at you. I can't remember, you left me, with 2 kids and you see the spirit say, I'm sorry. You're right. I didn't know what I was doing, but I I was having my own struggles, and I was being selfish and self-centered. And we all are these things. We're not just one or the other. We encompass all of the humanness that we are. The spirit world has the advantage and the beauty of actually seeing what they did, knowing in a way. And this is my experience from speaking to spirit, not necessarily do I know what heaven looks like. I think anybody in any meeting starts talking about they know what heaven looks like is full of baloney. But besides the point, you you have an overwhelming body of work, thousands and thousands of readings over the time. My feeling is, and my consensus is over what I've experienced is that the spirit world kind of knows what happened. They know what they did wrong. They know what they did right. And they're working forward on that. They don't want to leave things undone. They don't want to leave things screwed up. They don't want to continue the behaviors that maybe were family oriented back then. They want to help evolve the spirit. And that means the family spirit as well. We want to have an evolution of love and an evolution of spirit to uplift the world and not necessarily let's just play this game again. We want to evolve. So in the conversation across the table with the spirit, if you can picture your reading like that, what are you going to ask and how are you going to listen?
Right.
And how are you going to respond? And then how are you going to include the sitter in that response? Do you include the sitter by asking 9 million questions, which is not going to help them believe that you're truthful because now you're fishing with a net, and a bunch of hooks. And do you understand? Do you understand? Do you understand? Do you understand? It's like, give me a break. You should already know if they do or not. I like to say to my students, don't ever ask a question you don't already know the answer to. Okay, of spirit and of the sitter. Don't ever ask a question you don't already know. The mystery world, which is the spirit world, will give us information and we'll know it in all our senses, not just the fact that I smell smoke. Okay, I smell smoke. Oh, that's my clear customs. I got this. I know my clear sense is getting smoke. But am I actually processing that information? Am I actually, our left brain, that the practical mind does not sleep. It's still running and it
Yeah. It's
wants to
being
take over.
babysat back there,
Yeah,
usually.
it wants to take over. It
Yeah.
wants the wheel back. It wants to drive the bus, okay?
Hmm.
But we need to stay in our etheric mind and then allow that to just work in the background. Backseat driver, I call it, okay? So it's going to say, okay, I hear this about you. Am I right about it? Why am I right about it? Do I smell it? Okay, I smell it. What do I see? Do I see a pack of Marlboros on the table, or do I see cigars, or do I see house smoke? Somebody burned up a barn or a house or something, or do I see smoke at a campfire? Do I see what is it? What is this? Okay, so I have to have practical things going on at the same time, but I have to stay in control of the reading. So I
Hmm.
have to stay in control of what? My mind. Okay, and I'm not talking about the brain. I'm talking about
Right.
the
There's a
mind.
difference. Hmm.
There's a big difference. And so I need to be present fully in my reading. The worst thing for any reading, just like any conversation with a friend, is distraction. How do you feel when you're trying to tell a story to a friend and they're paying attention to the pretty girl across the parking lot,
Or their phone.
or their phone, their social media? How are they? How are they? How do you feel when they just ignore you completely because they're like, uh-huh, uh-huh. It's like it's so frustrating, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
imagine spirit and imagine the client if you're distracted. So one of the biggest thing about conversational mediumship is to be in the conversation.
Yes. Be
Don't
all in.
don't
Hmm.
escape. Be all in, or you really do yourself. You do the client and you do spirit and injustice. So you really got to commit to your work. You got to commit to
And
your
you
read.
almost have to lose track of time through
Hmm?
that process.
What?
You have to lose track of time.
You are in it. You are in
You know,
that.
it's like you just
My
have to be
little,
so
yeah.
in that moment of now in the conversation that
Yeah.
that's the only thing that exists for you at that
People
time.
ask me often, how do I know that I'm in the place, in the zone, if you will?
Yeah.
And I said, well, you remember back in school when you didn't like the teacher, you didn't like the topic, and you're kind of looking out the window and kind of see the leaves go like this, or you see a shiny bumper or an old Chevy, and it's like, and the teacher starts sounding like the Muppets or something. Wow, it's gone. That's where you need to be. You're focused on the other world. You're tuning in. That does not mean you're chasing them down. You need to allow them to come to you by giving them a place that's safe to come, safe to be in, safe to have a conversation, privacy. Okay. So if you think about having a private conversation with somebody, say, I'm going to use you as an example, Willa. You want to talk to your husband about something, but you don't want the kids to hear, because we're right. We either need to step outside or we need to go for a ride and have the kids take care, be taken care of. So we can have a private conversation, make a plan, get going and be okay, so that nothing's misconstrued, or they don't, they get excited about something that may or may not happen, that type of thing. And that's life. So life to life, what are we doing with the spirit world? We're having a private conversation. Now, that may be private with a lot of spirits present, but that's why we need to have it. We might see a bunch of spirits. I might draw a bunch of spirits at once, but there's a communicator that I'm going to have an intimacy with. I'm going to have a conversation that's meaningful about, maybe about all these people, a main communicator, if you will. I want to, at any table, at a Thanksgiving table, or you're out with a bunch of people for the night. There's always that one you're sitting next to that you can hear better than everybody else. There's always that one that you almost are forced into the conversation so that you're not yelling down the other end of the table. At the wedding, you might be trying to talk to somebody across that table of 10, that circle table of 10 people. Some people are getting the fish, chicken, or steak, but the fact of the matter is, you're trying to talk to the person across the table, but everybody else is going, how's it going, Joe? What's going on? And then you're confused. What's happening? You're distracted. And distraction creates confusion. And now, why am I getting two spirits at the same time? Well, because you're not close enough. You haven't invited them closer. Come on over here and sit. Be with me. Let's have a real conversation. Let's not have a screaming challenge. Come on over here and sit. Sit close to me. Blend with me. Be with me. Be me. Take me. Use me. Trust me. I'm here for you. I'm letting go. You use me. It's all right. I'm good. I trust you completely. That doesn't mean all the spirits left the table. It just means now I have one that is actually, I'm feeling I am them. I'm engrossed and involved and just kind of blended in with them. And at that point, I feel, okay, I'm much more confident about my mediumship. I'm much more confident about my conversation. I'm hearing clearly. I know the nuances of the movements of what things mean. I know what that smoke's all about. You know, I'm no longer seeing the cigars or the cigarettes on the table. I now could read the label on the cigarette that they have in their mouth, because they're close enough. I already know what I'm smoking. Matter of fact, I know exactly how this tastes, you know, and I know whether this is tobacco or wacky tobacco. I understand exactly where I'm at. And what does that do? Every thought brings thought. Every thought brings another thought. It's the momentum of life. So I might feel like I'm smoking. And with every drag of that cigarette that I feel I'm doing or being animated to do by the spirit, because animation is a part of this, of feeling I'm moving and doing things. With every drag of that cigarette, I'm also got other thoughts in my head as I'm taking the drag out of the cigarette. How many people out there that smoke in real life take a drag of the cigarette and say to themselves, I shouldn't be doing this. I should really quit this crap. Right. And so, where is the essence of that person? Where are the fears? Where are the joys? Where where are the memories that meant something, that laid down a path of conviction of their character and who they are? So, conversational mediumship and approaching it that way can just bring you a deeper reading than you've experienced before down memory line.
I couldn't agree more. And you've given some really great examples of how that can play out. And I think it is essential to develop that partnership of conversation with a primary spirit communicator. There's
Mm.
nothing like it. And there's just one who's a bit stronger at the table, as you say. But it's
Usually,
also fun to see the dynamic between those in spirit and
yes.
how they play together, or maybe they disagree. And it is also a delight during certain kinds of readings where they the interplay is happening and the client says, absolutely, that's exactly, I know they're here with us because that's how they would relate with each other. And
Right.
it's really
And
extra
a lot of
special.
times what we have is we have, don't forget that you're experiencing, if you're with that main communicator and you blend it with them, you're experiencing the other spirits or the other people in life, this life, who they're talking about that might be here and things going on here and living. You're
Yes.
experiencing it from their perspective. So you might see a woman in spirit come in the back door of the kitchen and she's just a wonderful person. She's vivacious, she's lovely, she's funny, she's engaging. So the spirit you're with may not have liked her, but you do.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can see the dynamics. It's like, oh, there's her sister. She's a pain in the neck. She's such a busybody. I can't stand her. It's like, so I can say to the client, your dad had a little problem with your mom's sister. And he didn't always like when she came over, but the rest of the family thought she was great. She goes, "Oh yeah, my father didn't like." It's like
And
there's
just further
evidence. It's
evidence of
huge
the
evidence.
connection.
Yes, it's
Yeah,
huge. You
yeah.
know, it's really cool. So conversational meeting brings up those aspects that memory lane doesn't always. It doesn't bring up the feelings, the emotions, the music of life itself. It doesn't bring it into play. So if you're going down a laundry list, well, that's all nice and good, and it might be true, and you might have a good reading, and geez, she got everything, that's fantastic. But did you get the feeling of the presence of spirit? Was the presence in the room? Like when we do a demonstration, the real test of a demonstration is, have I touched everybody's heart? Never mind the one person I read. Has everybody in the room felt the presence of spirit in the room? That's the challenge. That's when the energy is really there. That's when spirit is unmistakably in the room.
Right.
And that's when the evidence comes that not only is maybe even the sitter isn't convinced. Maybe, still skeptical, still sitting there looking at Joe going, how did he know that? He must be some kind of magician or something like that. But there's six other people in the room that are going, oh my God, you know. And now we know. Now we have a validation that it's not just silliness. This is real. This is touching. And the client themselves, or the actual recipient or sitter in the audience, just is not spiritually ready.
Right. They're not ready
So
for the
maybe some
gift.
sadness coming
Yeah.
because they had an opportunity to really come to know spirit. My job is to do my best, my highest and best, to bring forth the essence of that person, whether I'm drawing them, whether I'm talking about them, whether I'm communicating in how I move, how I feel, because we communicate in lots of ways. I don't know if you've ever sat across the diner table with somebody and they start they start to move in the chair in a certain way, and we almost mimic them.
Right, you mirror.
Well, we
Mhm.
mirror the image, and we start to do things, you know. I thought it was funny after college. I had I had roommates at Boston College, and I always did something that when I was contemplating, when I was at the library or I'm studying, I'd always smell my hand because it was salt. And I grew up in the ocean. So I don't know. It was a habit that I had. It's a weird habit, but,
Yeah.
but when I'm thinking and I'm writing, I do that, and I don't do it as often now, but I did it for years, and that's how I concentrate. And then it was years later, I was with my roommates from college, and we all had to sign something for a wedding or something. I don't know what it was. And I and two of them went like this. They had adopted my habit. So I made fun of them. I said, what are you doing? And they said, damn you. See, they had picked it up, kind of mimicking back in college. He goes,
We
yeah,
all have our quirks, right?
that's it. That's it. And so if we know that about people in spirit, I mean, even that little gesture would tell somebody a lot. So if somebody
Right.
said to me, what would you show people if you came back from spirit and, you know, engaged with a medium? And I said, I might do that, just because certain people would definitely know that's Joe, you know.
Joe the sniffer.
So the salt's different. Yeah, yeah. So
Oh,
anyway,
how funny.
yeah.
Well, it does get to be that way in identifying with their quirks and then trying to convey that. And even if it's something that we wouldn't do ourselves or we don't have experience
Right.
with, if you can just be in that state of the observer and the participant, and you're
Yeah,
holding those two things at the same time,
yeah.
you can really do a lot when you're conveying those pieces of information, those nuances to a client.
And that's what I would say to anyone here who's a client who's getting readings. I mean, you watch for those nuances, you watch for the subtleties of that going on. It's all communication. It's all language. It's a language of the heart that comes in different ways. It's not just words. Yes, you're going to listen to the words somebody says. Yes, you're going to listen to if a word comes out of context, you
Mhm,
know
mhm.
and I say, I used to like my boat and everything else, but this guy reminds me of somebody I met at a marina one time, and I'm talking about my story of my boat, my marina,
Mhm,
to explain about somebody and who he reminds me of because that's what he looked like.
mhm.
But that part of me that's talking about the marina and the boat more than likely has something to do with the spirit as well. In other
Mhm.
words, they liked boats, or they hung out in the marina, or they did things. The similarities are the same, and I will end up doing it in uh, unconsciously, if you will. We'll bring them information in that's meaningful because we're being used as the instrument. So if there's a little extra couple of notes in there about a marina and a boat, that's that's the musician, the greater musician, the spirit world playing me.
Yes.
And I'm allowing that, and it comes into my mind out of the blue. It's not
Mhm.
out of the blue. I trust that there's nothing wasted in a reading if the medium is soundly in their zone. Okay, there's nothing wasted. It all means something. It may be out of context or out of sync with other things, but it means something. And
True.
so we don't have time in a half an hour reading to go search it all. But I would say to the sitter, the people getting the reading, don't waste it. Don't let it go.
Mhm.
Write it down, put it on your notes. Listen for what's coming. Listen for what the medium's doing. If the medium goes like this, but he never says a word about it, but it reminds you of somebody, that's why.
That's
Okay.
right.
I remember I was in the reading one time and I was doing this. I didn't realize I was doing it.
Right.
It's like this. And then a woman burst out laughing. And I was like, what's wrong? She goes, what are you doing on your eyebrows? I said, what? It's like, she goes, my mother did that all the time. It's like, I
Right.
don't do that every day. I barely
Yeah.
have. So that's an observant sitter. That's somebody who's going to get more out of their reading because they're paying attention to everything, not
Yes.
just to the words, but to everything, every movement, the way I sit in the chair, you know,
Yes. There's
and
gold. There's gold in different places. It just
it's
shows
just
up.
it's just so richly beautiful. And don't think for a minute that spirit doesn't know we've only got a short period of time. So they're going to pump it in as fast as
Yes.
they can in every way they can. And we might feel overwhelmed as mediums. Pace yourself. Go easy with your work. I call it stay in the music, you know, stay in the music. It keeps coming. Try not to stop and go silent. Unless you say so, I'm going to be quiet for a moment. Let people know where you're at. Otherwise, you drop them off the face of the cliff.
Right.
All communication is all directions. So the medium has a responsibility to communicate to the sitter what they're doing. Okay. And if they don't do that, then they're going to be dropping left and right because
Hmm.
they're, what
They're
happened?
gonna drop a link.
Well, they're going
Great.
to drop the link, they're going to drop the energy,
Hmm.
and it makes it 10 times harder to do the reading at that
It
point.
really does.
Yeah.
And I think there's a place in terms of conversational mediumship where sometimes you have to say to a spirit that really loves to talk a little too much that they need to move aside and let somebody else be part of the conversation. I
Like
think
any
there's a place
conversation.
for that
Yeah.
too. Hmm.
Like any conversation, you can be with a circle of friends out in the parking lot and somebody's dominating. So it's like, wait a minute, he wants to say something. Let him say something. You
That's
know,
right. So
They-
if you're a
be
medium,
quiet.
know that you can do that. Know that you can switch who is allowed to have your primary focus at that time.
And if you don't know that as a medium, try it.
Yes.
Really put an effort to it at some point in time if that's the case, if that's what happens. You could be stuck on. I see a lot of mediums make the mistakes, especially early on, okay, of they stay with the main communicator and they don't try to move anywhere else. Now, there's lots to be said, no doubt about it.
Oh, sure.
But that may not be the recipient, that may not be the spirit that the recipient was hoping for. So you just spent a half an hour with Aunt Mabel, and that's really nice, and it's great to know that Aunt Mabel's it has a continuity of life. She's there, and really, that's the most important message that life goes on. That gives us some hope for this world of ours, but that may not be where the grief is or the healing is necessary. And as people involved in the midst of healing, we have a job to do. We have a place or a position in which we can help with that healing by feeding through the information that's coming through from that person who may have passed and give them a healing that they're okay. That we get that sense of who they are and they're still around.
Hmm.
But if we spend too much time trying to figure out, well, I'm not sure if it's a Rick or a Richard. If we spend a lot of time trying to figure out what the R meant, we lose a lot of time, a lot of effort, and possibly a lot of extremely important information.
Right. And you'll drop a link if you engage in the analytical mind.
Yeah. I'll say something about myself, and that is, I have students over the years, over many years have been, they like, oh, I didn't get her son. She lost her son, but I got all these other people. It's like I understand. I understand the pain of that. As a medium, we're broken if we didn't get the primary person that they're suffering from the loss of, the husband, whatever the case may be. And so we suffer for that. We kick ourselves afterwards. We take out the baseball bat to the back of the head. I should have known better. I should have been. I saw that and I didn't say anything, and we go round and round and round. But I I push myself, and I would hope that other mediums push themselves not to pain, not to beating oneself up, but to say, how could I have done that differently? How could I have gotten more information? How could I have gotten that person? And even with me, if I get a letter, like I get an R in my head, and it's like I start to get distracted a little bit because I'm saying, what is wrong with you? Why don't you get the name, you know? So instead of doing that, let's go back to the diner table, the booth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've got R. I knew your name, you know, and I'm looking across the table at the spirit going, I know your name is an R. And then I'm sitting there doing what? I'm waiting? Yeah, I suppose, but waiting for what? I didn't ask a question. So I'm waiting for Godot, you know, nothing's
Right.
coming, you know. So I have to say, what's your name? Tell me your name. Show me your name. Have me feel the name. Or I can put it into the music, if you will. I can say, my name is, and fulfill it, you know, just like we've talked about before, I think in a long time ago. It's like, you know, Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary had a little lamb as fleece as white as, and everybody in their minds is finishing it that
Sure.
knows the song. So if we are blended with spirit and we know spirit and spirit knows us and knows us completely and is using us completely, they'll complete it for us. So we put it into that scenario. These are techniques or maybe mechanics, if you will, in one way, but in another way, it's the natural order of things as far as communicating or having a conversation with spirit. It's normal.
It's normal. And it's normal for them to switch topics too, because that's how conversations roll.
That's
And
how they roll.
sometimes spirit does not want to answer a question because why? They have that prerogative.
Right. How many times have you been in a conversation with a friend and they bring up something and you go, oh, and you remember something else that's not even related to this, but the fact that you said that particular word or two
Triggers.
reminds them of, the time on Coney Island or something, it's like,
Right.
what? We were just talking about a pool in Florida and now you're in Coney Island. I mean, like, so that's what happens. Just like
And
real life, life
so
to life.
everything that can happen in a normal, living person to living person conversation can happen also with spirit. And people need to
Absolutely.
keep that in mind as they're
And not only,
evolving with this.
not only can it happen, but it's important that it does because that's what brings through the true essence of the spirit, not
Yeah.
just a laundry list of who they were.
That's right, because it's happening in real time. When you're
Right.
working with conversational mediumship, it's a real time situation. It's not something that you got in advance and wrote down or were trying to remember. It is absolutely spontaneously occurring,
Right.
and it will never occur necessarily like that again. It's just
Yeah. Yeah.
a snapshot in time for that conversation, and it can be
Mhm.
really beautiful the way it unfolds. And
Absolutely.
some conversations are masterpieces, and some are what just happened. So it just depends on all the factors at play.
I think the conversational mediumship really it begins with a conversation with yourself as a medium. And that conversation should go a little bit like, what am I doing? What kind of medium do I really want to be? What kind of information do I want to bring through and how do I want to bring it through? Do I just want to stick with my clairaudience or do I want to stick with my clairvoyance and talk about what I'm seeing? Or do I want to build and become the instrument in all ways, shapes, and forms for the spirit world to provide the best vehicle for them to get the message across? And what am I willing
Yes.
to do with that? How
Mhm.
much time am I willing to invest in that? Am I just going to be a weekend warrior and give a couple messages on a Sunday? Or am I going to kind of invest myself in really understanding this? And once I'm ready, I'm going to go out into the world and serve as an authentic medium.
Mhm.
Because I will say this to everybody here on the show, it's like there's a lot of mediums. Yes, that's true. But there's not a lot of good ones. and we need more. There's plenty of room for people who are serious about this work.
Yes,
And the spirit
absolutely.
world would be very appreciative, I'm sure. Okay.
Any last tips you'd like to share with folks before we close for today?
I think the funniest thing is when people have a conversation is when they sit across from each other and they don't say a word. Um, that's the hardest conversation to have, right? To sit with somebody who doesn't talk. So
Yeah.
you're asking all the questions. That's the hardest conversation to have in real life. If spirit comes to you, they're going to talk. They're going to speak to you in one way or another with all your senses, with all their being. So don't forget to ask questions. Don't forget to be involved in the conversation. Don't sit there and wait for it to come because they don't know what you want. And then, unless they can get blended with you, get to know you, get to feel you and trust you, then it becomes more and more. Then the spirit world itself, the intelligence of the spirit world, then begins to help you and teach you. And as I've said many times, your best teachers don't walk around in shoe leather. Your best teachers come with experience and having them help you see how it works with you. Particularly, we're not alike. We do lots of similar things as mediums, as people in the world, but we all have our own lives and we all have our own ways of perceiving things. So allow yourself to come to know your best ways of perceiving things and then add to it as you go, the more ways to accomplish it. But well,
Beautiful.
thanks for having me on. I appreciate it so
Yes.
much.
Yes, thank you so much for being here today and sharing about conversational mediumship. I know that's something that's near and dear to both of our hearts and how
Mhm.
we work as mediums. And it is about bringing through that essence of spirit and really showing up and being part of that conversation with every part of yourself as a medium. And you expressed it so well, Joe. We really appreciate
Oh,
it.
well,
Yeah.
I think if you do it, you're gonna everyone who does this and really works hard at this, the the true blessings that come back, the true good that comes back to you of learning about yourself and how to improve your own life, it just is incredible. It's really a gift. That's the
It,
gift. The gift is always coming back, you know.
it is. It is. And we'll have Joe back on the show. He'll be back on April 24th, and we're going to be talking about the future of mediumship and the advancements of science and how that relates to mediumship. So we'll have another great show with him upcoming. So mark your calendars right now. And of course, I'll have another great show for you next week on Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Same time, same place. And this upcoming week will be Tracy Murphy, and she is the caretaker of the Fox Family Memorial. And we're doing a Fox Family series. She'll be talking about Maggie and Katie Fox because we have the upcoming, the annual modern birth of modern spiritualism. So we'll be talking about those next week, and ask that you tune in, or you can watch the replay here on Willa White Medium. And you can find more about Joe, because Joseph Shiel does have his own website, josephshiel.com. So you can find out more information about him and his classes and other events that he's offering. And of course, the Journey Within Church
Very
that's in New
with a lot of
Jersey.
them. Yeah, they have some good
Yes.
features, so it'd be good. Thank
Beautiful. Well,
you.
thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.